One more and we're all ready to go. Okay, we ready? Okay, all right. Good evening to you all and good morning to some of you. We're going to continue on with the study of Pratityasamutpada as it applies to contemplation. And so we started a little bit last week in a very, let's say, generalized way. And we're still going to be a little bit more general, but with some more substance to this. This is a lesson, I haven't started, I know, that will be one in which I want you to really use your heart to contemplate, okay? So we'll start, you join your palms, bow, 4 great vows. I vow to deliver innumerable sentient beings. I vow to cut off endless vexations. I vow to master limitless approaches to Dharma. I vow to attain supreme Buddhahood. Okay, we can continue now. What we're going to start with is the idea of contemplation, and the way I use contemplation is a little bit different than some practices where they say you have to contemplate something, but it's really cogitation. It's just that when one thinks about it and is engaged in a deep or profound thought, then they think about it in this way. But even some of the masters say don't contemplate, because to them that word contemplate means that that you're thinking about it, you're engaged in it. But when I use contemplation, it's more like turning the mind's eye inward and seeing things as they are, as they're appearing. We don't have to define it, name it, or anything. You've already studied, you already have everything all there ready to go. Then all you have to do is just let go of what's there, but you don't have to discard it. And this is something that's very, very difficult for us. So when I say to jump in the void, this is very confusing to a lot of you. Some of you, it's scary. To others, it's confusing and scary simply because you don't know where you're going to land. Well, you're not really going to land anywhere. It's that's why they called it in the Chan the gateless gate, that you pass through the gate, but in fact, there's no real passing. There's no transcending that's there. There's no enlightenment. And again, we come back to the Heart Sutra with that. So we begin to understand that what is being propounded by the Prajnaparamitas is this idea of just mind, and the thusness of mind. Now, we cannot know that. And we cannot in samsara practice that. We can bring our mind to accord with the 3 jewels, the 4 noble truths, the 5 precepts, the 6 paramitas, the 8-fold path, the 37 factors of enlightenment. But all of those are the practicing of a dream within a dream of a dream practice. And at some point in time, that kind of a practice can still the mind so that it can transcend. And again, there's that word transcend there, where we hear it even in the Heart Sutra, transcending all suffering. It's more like awakening to the fact that there is no suffering. Shifu's book on the Heart Sutra was one which I knew the person who got the name for it, one of his students, but it was called There Is No Suffering, and which is something that I felt was an appropriate name for it, that there is no suffering. So it's a different way of looking at it, because you go, that you hurt. Yesterday, I I burnt my fingers on some hot oil. It hurt. And they kind of blistered up and everything. I'm okay. I don't need to go to the doctor, put any oil or anything on it. They're fine. But the thing is that my point is that it hurt. I experienced the hurt, but I didn't experience suffering from that. The suffering would have been additional. And my body was telling me, don't do that again, stupid. How long you've been doing this? And but it was an accident. And I dropped something and it slipped from my hand and it splashed up oil on me. And so the idea here is that we begin to see things from a different kind of a viewpoint. That doesn't mean that Gilbert doesn't suffer. When I lose my practice, I suffer with the best of them. But I try not to suffer. Of course, we cannot escape pain. We cannot escape. Well, you could escape old age. If something happened to you, you can't escape death. So all of those things are there. We understand that, but do we really understand that? Do we fear it? Do we fear dying? My biggest fear right now is that I will die before I have enough time to really work on the presentation of the Dharma and begin to say some meaningful things and put enough information out there to help people. That's my biggest fear. I'm not worried about death, nor do I look for it, or like I don't care about death. Let it come. I'm not stupid. I'm not foolhardy. I don't test like that. If it comes, it comes. I just hope it doesn't come too soon, simply because I still have substantial amount of work to do in this world. But then again, it's just like Shifu said, dying is not bad. You trade your old car in for a new one. It's a pretty good deal. So we begin to understand this, and we begin to understand the parameters of mind. And does anybody know what the parameters of mind are? And Santa's looking at it going, this is a trick question, I know. Could you put a mark there and put a parameter and say this is where mind ends? It's infinite. It's infinite. I really want you to explore the idea of mind. And the way that you explore it is through the contemplation. Again, this is not contemplating and you're sitting there going, oh, here it comes, or this is here, or I don't have a thought or whatever. Those thoughts may come up in mind, but they are appearing because they're habitual. After a while, then those thoughts will appear less and less. And then the mind will just simply be at rest. It doesn't mean that thoughts don't arise. It doesn't mean that mental impressions don't arise. That you don't hear, who's there? Maybe it's the Buddha. Those things can come up. You just don't pay attention to them. You just simply sit or you contemplate. And if you're in action, you just simply do what you need to be doing in that moment. You don't have to add anything to it. You don't have to judge it. You just are experiencing it and harmonizing with it. So this contemplation works not only on the cushion, but in your everyday life. It's not so easy for us to do that because, quite frankly, we're not very good at it. When we sit to meditate, we sit to think. What are we thinking about? I'm thinking about all the thoughts that I want to get out of my head. The one master, when they asked him, what are you thinking about? He said, I'm thinking of not thinking. And so the young monk scratches his head and says, but Shifu, how do you think about not thinking? And he said, by not thinking. And it's very interesting because when we look at things like this, it's not so easy for us to understand. They sound very clever and wise and profound and funny, but we have to take it to heart. We have to study what this means, and we have to accord mind with that. And as we begin to do that, we begin to illuminate mind. The more that we practice in the proper way, the more we illuminate the mind. If we practice from the side of samsara and follow all of the the 3 to 37s, I'll call them, not bad. It's good, but remember that's secondary to just letting the mind be, and the mind will reflect all of those in its present conduct and its present function. This is very important that we follow it this way. This is something that my senior student Rick, he understood way back, the idea of the function of mind. And so when he understood that, it changed everything in the way that he looked at things. He no longer saw it from the viewpoint of Rick. He's seen it from what needs to be there. It's as simple as the young monk that asked the master after dinner, what is Chan? And he said, he looked down and the young monk had a bowl, and he said, have you washed your bowl yet? And he goes, no. And he goes, well, go wash your bowl. It's that simple. We make it entangled. We make the world entangled. And we entangle in the dream. And here's the part that's very interesting when I'm talking about we. I'm not talking about you. I'm not talking about you. You go, what do you mean? You're not, who else is here? And indeed, who is there? Who is there? Who is the one that is in this dream? Do you believe that you are in a dream? What do you think? Do you believe you're in a dream? Anybody? Yes, Mark.
Maybe a piece of mind is in the dream. So it's like a section of the mind.
Yeah, this is something that's very interesting because you can't really, let's say, define it, but you're closer to it than closer to the samsaric explanation. Because Mark is not there, but this this meatball that the mind moves around and calls it Mark, it kind of utilizes this, but that meatball, the one that we know as Mark, is a dream. But that which moves it around is mind. So it's difficult for us because, and that again goes back to Nagarjuna. And I keep bringing this up because sooner or later, you're going to have an aha moment when you hear this. And when you see that it neither exists or not exist, because it is. Nobody know?
Mind.
Mind. I read your mind, Eon. I said, speak. So good. So it's mind. It's difficult for us to be able to understand that. We can understand it in a samsaric way. But in order to experience that, then the void must be jumped into.
Can we experience it when our minds connect?
Yes and no. It can be with if there's a well-known advisor or somebody with a high skill level, they can put into your mind something, such as I was looking at Eon, I said, say it. And so it can be that way. But some people will misunderstand what I'm saying about that. But here the causes and conditions were such that it's beneficial, because then you ask that question. The well-known advisor can share that. If you remember, in I think it was the 39th chapter of the Vatamsaka Sutra, when Maitreya lent his powers for Sudana to be able to see mind. He wasn't able to see completely the mind, but he was able to see enough of it. So it is possible for that to do that, or someone to have a little peak, a little realization. And actually, I'm going to be talking about that, because that's the next thing in terms of a segue of this, is that we have this kind of a desire that we want to have that experience. And so since everything is created by the mind, voila, what happens? We have a quote unquote enlightening experience. It may be that we see the color red. It may be that we see a bunch of sparkling, dazzling things in our mind. It could be something there, but it's all imaginings at the sensory gate. Of course, they appear because cause and condition never fail. You want it so bad, then you will see something. But it's difficult for us to discern the reality of mind spontaneously appearing with these fantastic appearances within mind. Those appearances are not a true realization. They're conjured up because mind creates them, because there's an interest. And even though mind believes that it's a sentient being, it nevertheless is creating the world. The Buddha is creating the world, but in a way that is entangled. Now, when we talk about the three bodies, anybody know what the three bodies of the Buddha is?
The Dharmakaya, the Nirmanakaya, and the Sambhogakaya.
Sambhogakaya? Okay. I always call it Sambhogakaya, but it's Sambhogakaya. Okay. I looked at it the last time and I realized there was an extra syllable that I was missing there. Okay. And so the Sambhogakaya means what? Go ahead, Sudha.
The enjoyment body, or the resonance body, maybe?
Yeah, sometimes they call it the reward body.
Mm.
It's very interesting. And then we have the Narmonicaya. Well, let's go to the Dharmakaya first. The Dharmakaya, what is the Dharmakaya?
The truth body?
The truth body. Why is it the truth body?
The body of the Buddha?
All right. Is that something where you read it somewhere?
Probably
It's
a
okay.
long time ago when I was looking at Tibetan Buddhism.
All right. Well, that's not bad. Anybody else? What would you define Dharmakaya to be?
Also the mind ground.
The mind ground. You have a pretty good memory there, Ananda. So that's good. That will come help and be helpful to you if you can turn this and convert this to contemplation. So that's good.
Yes.
All right. Anything else about the Dharmakaya?
Essence.
The essence, the Buddha essence. This is very interesting. Before I get to the third one, I will ask you, of the three, only one is real. Like David said, the truth. But only one is real. Oh, I kind of gave away the answer, didn't I? But well, which one is real?
Dharma
Go ahead.
body is real.
Huh?
Dharma body is real.
The Dharmakaya is the one that when we say real, it means that there's not unreal to it. It is the thusness of the mind. But let's get to Narmonicaya. What is Narmonicaya?
The wisdom.
Wisdom? Anybody else?
The appearance body?
Well, there's an appearance body, so how does that function? Mark?
Compassion.
Compassion? All right.
Lingian says manifestation.
Manifestations. Now, follow me here. Okay, follow me. In terms of this, what manifestations?
Of mind?
Of mind, manifestations of mind, but what are those?
Compassion?
Compassion is a attribute, but what is appearing?
Sentient beings.
Along with what else?
Everything else.
Everything else. And who or what is driving these appearances?
The mind ground.
The mind ground. The mind ground is the Buddha. So all the appearances in samsara are not separate from the Buddha. It cannot possibly be separate from the Buddha. It cannot be. It's all connected. But we separate out samsara and our goal to reach nirvana or parinirvana or whatever you want to call it, the front of the line at Disneyland, whatever. But we don't see that it's already there. It's already the Buddha mind. What else would have produced these appearances? Simply by Pratityasamutpada, causes and conditions never fail. So if the Buddha wants to go and teach in a higher level heaven, the Buddha can do that. The Buddha can multiply the Buddha body by 1 billion. Why? It's the Buddha. It's the Buddha mind. We aren't there, and we don't have somebody with a counter going, hey, you know, Sutra Monifo, you can't add any more. If you add another one, you know, it's going to be too much. We can't hold that many in mind. It's not that way. There's a religion, I won't say which religion, but they have a belief that only 600,000 people can reach heaven. And they knock on the door to tell you that only 600 people can reach to heaven, 600,000. And you'd think by now, like Super Bowl tickets, there's probably not a whole lot of them left. So I remember one comedian was saying that they knocked on the door and they told them that, and the comedian just goes, shh, quiet. There can't be that many left. You know, you have to be careful who you tell this to. But it's infinite. It's that difference. Buddhism is not a religion. It is not a religion. You can do devotional practice, but what you're giving devotion to is this very mind that's listening right now. when it is seen in the proper way, then the mind will naturally be present. If it's corrupted by somebody, then they will walk around saying, I'm the Buddha. Then you have to use what the Chan said, kill the Buddha. Not really. I mean, don't, this is not like a radical religion where you have to kill the people if they convert to another religion. But the idea is kill the idea of a Buddha. And that's an important aspect of this. And I remember once I was talking and there was somebody that was asking me a question at CMC, and they didn't tell me that it was like on a radio broadcast. And somebody had asked me that, and he'd asked Shifu, he'd asked this master and this master, perhaps, can he, can I answer, the question? It was something like, what is the Buddha or whatever. So I tried to answer it as best as I could. And I said, if you cannot get it, then just kill yourself. And what I meant was kill the self. And so it was a play on words, but then I caught what I said, and so then I said, and kill the Buddha while you're at it. And so afterwards I said, do you know that was on a radio broadcast, And I'm going like, okay, I got to be careful about that. So if I ever say kill the Buddha, don't go out and try to kill the Buddha, or go to like a restaurant and chop off the head of the poor milafo that's there in the front. Okay, it just means cut. When we cut it, we don't cut it like severing it. We cut the attachment, the illusion of something separate from this very mind. What we want to do is start from the other side and see things as they are, see the mind as it is, and not try to chop it up into different pieces. It will not work that way. That's why the sutras are always talking about that it could be this giant Buddha, or it could be Buddhas, all within one single mote of dust, billions. To sever this apprehending mind, this mind that wants to hold on to stuff, and it grabs this and it goes, oh, okay, this is a good jewel, and it grabs it and this is a better jewel, and then what does it do? Is it satisfied with these two jewels? I can only have one. Oh, well, then I'll take this one. But even with this one in hand, what does it do? There's got to be a bigger one out there. I need to find that bigger one. That's all samsara. That's all ignorance. What we've talked about many times, nescient entrenchment, this deep-rooted ignorance that is there, that does not understand that this very mind is the Buddha mind. It's difficult for us because when we're presented with Buddha Dharma, we're always presented with the idea that the Buddhas are way high up. And generally, if we want to communicate with them, we have to go up to some mountain or heavenly place to be able to even try to get close to them to get an autograph. And so it's difficult for us to understand that. But it doesn't mean that I'm not devotional. I'm very, very devotional. As I mentioned before, I burn incense, recite the Buddha's name, and maintain an altar. But I'm cognizant of what that represents, is that it represents that within us, we have what's called the Tathagata Garbha. Very interesting. So does anybody know what the Tathagata Garbha stands for? I have no senior students here, right?
Thus come one, thus gone one.
Womb of the Buddha.
Womb of the Buddha.
The womb of the Buddha, okay. And what does the womb of the Buddha represent? and I'll give you bonus points if you can, wax poetically about it.
It's the womb of Buddhahood itself.
Is it the embryo of the potentiality of the Buddha, or is it that everything comes from the Buddha womb?
It is that everything is the Buddha.
Okay, Harry chimed in here. Let's hear from New York.
Yeah, it's both. It's the womb and the fetus. It's everything, potential and the realization.
Okay, so does that mean that there is a coming of the Buddha in that way?
A coming of the Buddha?
Yeah, I'm just trying to expand upon what you were saying.
Yeah. He's thus come and thus gone. So there's no coming and no going.
There's no coming and no going. So then what does the womb represent? And I'll be fair about this. There's two interpretations of this. One of them leans towards a more scholarly way, and the other one leans towards more right view. So the pressure is on you now.
Okay.
You want to be a scholar, or you want to be right view?
No, I don't want to be a scholar. I think it's that term is an expedient means to wake us up to the Buddha that we already are. It's not like there's a womb somewhere, in outer space. It's a way of recognizing what our real situation is, which is unencumbered and unlimited.
And that would represent the true identity of the sentient being.
I don't think it's an identity.
So what would it be?
It would be essence. It's not different from Dharmakaya or mind. See, you can always say mind. It's the get out of jail card, right?
But or get out of the womb.
Get out of the womb.
It's very interesting, and Harry as a very accomplished practitioner is being very generous. I would say pay attention, because he's talking for you too, and trying to look at this. What I'm trying to do in these classes is take all that we've been studying and try to put it into something that enables us, let's say, that little step ladder to be able to get up high enough to see the void, and then understand that we just need to jump, and that there's no other way around it. And we cannot, if we try to say that the Tathagata Garbha, this Buddha womb, is the potentiality for a sentient being to become enlightened, what do you think? Is that correct or not? Oh my gosh, what happened? I
have a question. I was trying to ask you before. I think that the retribution between the layperson and the Buddha, there's a huge difference. But fundamentally, it is of the same Dharmakaya, but the retribution and appearance can be so different. My question is also, we are also the appearance body of the Dharmakaya, but we so far are unable to perform that kind of appearance body of our Naksikamuni Buddha. But the fundamental, the essence, it is the same Buddha body. It's the same Dharmakaya.
Okay, and thank you. I'm I'm going to throw it out to the group, and this is where audience participation counts. Okay, so I really hope you can all contribute in terms of this. But is Rong Chen correct, or is there something that is wrong in his way of looking at things? What do you think? You won't get upset if somebody says you're wrong, right?
Okay, I'll say something. This is the beginner's interpretation, I guess. From what I understand of Tathagata Garbha is, it's like the everything that we can possibly conceive of, which includes like all these terms that we need to get us there, like the world, the emptiness, the there, the not there, the existent, the non-existent, like everything that's actually the mind, everything created by the mind, like all these terms that we are trying to conceive of in our mind, and beyond, actually. And I mean, right now I'm at this level, right? I think as I progress, I'll probably understand more, and then that includes that as well. Like it basically everything, like the good and the bad and the whatever we can conceive of, which includes the fetus, the potential, the non-potential, the everything. That's what I understand. It's like the Garbha part of the Tathagata, like it's the thing that's everything that's there. That's what I understand, right? At my level anyway.
It's okay. Don't ever think about your level. You're welcome to speak at any time, and it is actually benefits you much more than everybody else. But everybody else benefits from what you're saying. Sometimes people just have too much self to be able to talk in a group, and they're afraid that I'm gonna, like whack-a-mole and hit them on the top of the head, but it isn't in that way. The things that are that when you get corrected, you should be very happy. When I was studying the Kung Fu, if a teacher corrected you, that was great. I was happy because that meant that I was going to get better in my practice because I was doing something wrong. So if the teacher never corrects you, then what good's the teacher? Throw them out. It's not. It's something that we present things, and I throw things out like in a class like this to kind of gauge where people are and have this discussion to kind of show, okay, here are some traps that are coming up. And Rong Chen is skillful in how he's saying things, but there's still something there a bit missing, not much, but a bit missing. And it was like Ananda in the old days, there was something missing in terms of how he understood that. And he was always hoping that that the Buddha would show him. And then he was hoping after the Buddha died that Mahakasyapa would help him and teach him what he needed to do. And so it is in this way that we present it. And then when you hear yourself, then that's good. It's a great benefit to everyone. And again, it's not something that I've corrected Sentha many times. No, and it's made her stronger. Every time I've done it, and some of them are very little nitpicky things, but they do mean quite a bit. Okay, anybody else have something to say about this Tathagata Garbha, this womb? Yeah, go ahead, Mark.
It's mind awakening to mind, or the Buddha mind awakening to Buddha. That's how I think about it.
Yeah, it is the thinking that's in the samsara, but the idea is is one that's not so easy for us to try to figure out is that the Buddha mind is pure and complete. And the Garbha represents potentiality. I think Asanta was mentioning that of things, or it houses not only the present, but the future and the past, in terms of what is there. And in the Yogacara school, they would call it the Alaya Vijnana. But we look at it and see that when it's perfected, it's still the eighth consciousness. The only difference is that this consciousness is no longer apprehending the seventh consciousness as cogitating consciousness. It uses it, but it doesn't see that as something that is fundamentally real as much as an extension of mind and the dream world. We have to be very, very careful in terms of certifying ourselves when we talk. And that's Rongchen, where you have to be careful, falling into that trap of going back and saying, okay, well, it's this, and you're putting in the components of mind, but hidden behind that is still the idea of the self. It's very subtle difference, so subtle that we cannot see it, but it's there. So what we have to do is penetrate all the way through, so that and this is like a paper sack that we're in, and it can be torn apart because mind is capable of doing that. And if we do that, it stops the world, but only for ourselves. So some people were making the comment of the compassion. The compassion is there as a compassion of, I was talking, I think, the other day, and then, life imitates art, or my example where I hurt, I would talk about somebody that hurt their finger, and lo and behold, I hurt my finger, and this one's over here and is taking care of it. And we see things in this way as the body. This is the Dharmakaya. The Narmonicaya is very interesting because it is a manifestation of the Buddha, but it can be manifested in so many different ways and so many variants. We only see this variant in the samsaric world, but it's kind of like that old Star Trek series, where they go far enough out and they find all sorts of different species and life forces that are out there. And they're not separate from mind. So it's interesting. We use this analogy of the dream because it helps us understand that. But when we talk about who is the dreamer, we have to be very careful about that. We are not the dreamer. We are the dreamed. This body is. The mind is, how would you say, is unconditioned. It doesn't increase or decrease. It's not born. It's always been there. This is something we don't know, because all we see is just, oh, so-and-so had a baby, so-and-so died, so-and-so sick, so-and-so is getting older, so-and-so never made it to get older. We don't see the world as it really is. And these manifestations or phantoms that confuse the mind into thinking that this is reality. But it really can't be reality, because if it was reality, it would be permanent. You would be permanent. And I don't think you would be permanent. Even by some way, you became a zombie and you're here 100 years from now, I don't know whether there would be too many people that would want you around. Maybe your arm would fall off by then, whatever. But the thing is that what is permanent is that which moves that zombie mind. And so I'm using that analogy, modern day analogy, maybe 150 years from now in my lectures are there to go, what is a zombie? What's a walking dead person? Huh? Oh, that's very profound. People are walking dead. They just don't know they're a walking dead. Sooner or later, they're going to die. That's very profound. So in any case, they would probably more than likely uncover a McDonald's and think that we were praying to this giant M. So, and there's these churches named McDonald everywhere. So, but in any case, what I want to do is get you to look at this, experience it without thinking, and try to understand this unconditioned. So when we sit to meditate, there's nothing for us to do. We just sit. Things will manifest all around us naturally. We don't have to worry about it at all. We don't have to fiddle with it. When we fiddle with it, we become more entangled. The only way to disentangle is just to leave it alone. It belongs there because it's mine. It is also part of the Narmonicaya. The Buddhas and the sentient beings are not two different minds. So when the mind is in the dream, it can create things as appearance bodies. You're an appearance body. So what is causing the appearance? What causes the appearance? Nobody knows.
Pratityasamutpada, the cause and conditions.
Causes and conditions. And what is Pratityasamutpada?
It's the mind.
The mind. Here's the thing that's very, very important. When we talk about the 12 nidanas, we're talking about appearances in the dream world. This is not appearances in the Buddha world. The Buddha world is governed by different rules in terms of things, different, let's say, laws of nature. It's still governed by Pratityasamutpada, but not in the same way as in this world, in the samsaric world. These rules apply, the 12 nidanas apply to this world. But Pratityasamutpada is the Buddha mind. That's uncreated. We try to see what is created because of all of these things, but we don't understand that Pratityasamutpada is mind. It is how everything appears. But for mind, nothing could appear. It has to be connected in this way. There cannot be many different minds. It could not work that way. You just have to kind of like use your logical thinking to see things in this way. You cannot say that you have an infinite soul or a life in being. If you had an infinite soul or a life in being, you would be able to remember clearly everything that happened before, how many lifetimes. The Buddhists can do that because the Buddhists have the idea of the mind and idea of the life stream within the Buddha mind. And so they use what's called mind stream, not life stream, but they use mind stream. So if they want to access information from a particular heaven, they use mind stream to be able to do that. They're not limited to the laws of this world. So they don't have to sprout wings to go anywhere. As there's no locale, in an instance, they can be wherever they want to go. We don't understand that because we are caught up in this world and tied down by our idea of the laws that govern this world. If we let go of those laws, doesn't mean that means that you can do anything and say, well, it doesn't matter, so I can go and gamble or do whatever I want, drink or use drugs or whatever. It's not that way. Although there's some people even in Taiwan, these so-called masters were doing things like that, and they're saying, well, these laws don't apply to me. When they don't apply to you, you can do this, but don't do that right now. It was such nonsense. It's a corruption of the Buddha Dharma. But the thing is that when we begin to look at this, we have the opportunity to be able to jump into the void. Jumping into the void is just the acceptance of Pratityasamutpada. Acceptance that Pratityasamutpada is the Buddha mind. So once there is an awakening, it is an awakening not of you, because you are a dream person, but awakening of the dreamer comes out and can clearly see the things as they are. If this world was real, it's just like you have a dream, and when you have a dream and something's chasing you, when you wake up, it's gone, or I would hope it would be. Because it's not real. You're not real either. And when you look at it, you begin to change. It doesn't mean that it's nihilistic or you throw everything away. Quite to the contrary, once identifying the true nature of the mind, there's a liberation there. A liberation that enables you to function, you being mind, not the body, and utilizing this body for whatever harmonious purposes and necessary purposes it should have, but it's not attaching to anything. So when we contemplate, we just are allowing the mind to remain in mind. When we sit to meditate and we start cogitating, then we start dreaming. What are we dreaming? What am I going to eat when I get up? My leg hurts. This is stupid. I've been sitting for 5 minutes and I haven't gotten any experience whatsoever. I want to see that dazzling color the last time I sat. All these different things that can come up, but it's very ordinary and mundane. The experience is just the same as here. The only difference is that you know that it's a dream. And you know that the mind, although using this body, it does not constitute a self. Now, when they asked the Buddha about that, and they said, does the self exist? He said, Anatman. Now, 99% of the time, people will say, what does Anatman mean? What does Anatman mean? Any of you Sanskrit scholars out there know what it means? Anatman. I'll give you a hint. Atman means self. And if you add an an to the front of it, it means
not self.
Not self. It is what's the difference between not self and no self?
No self is acknowledging there is a self. Not self is just not.
All right, let me give you a not. All right. Anybody want to say, Robert, you want to throw a lifeline out to somebody? Who do you think would know this? Go ahead and pick somebody. You have the usual suspects lingering around.
Oh, I hope Sutan can help me.
And I was putting it in your mind to ask her too. Okay, Sue.
I knew he was going to call me.
I felt the feeding.
Okay, go ahead, Sue. What's the difference between when we say no self or not self? What was the Buddha making a distinction about?
Well, there's a self that it's not separate from everybody else. So we are all connected. So in that sense, there was no individual self.
All right. Anybody else want to say something?
I
Nobody?
think this is the concept of duality and non-duality. So non-self is the duality concept, and the not self is the singular. It's the dozens.
Not self?
Non-self.
Or the not. So when it says non-self, or okay, instead of no self, it says not self. There's a little bit of a change here. Okay, Ronchen.
Not self is just the appearance. It is
No
not
self.
self, it's just appearance. There's no self.
Okay.
The only self is the Buddha nature, is the Buddha Dharmakaya.
So I think, Yulia, what they're saying, or what the Buddha was saying, was that, and rather than saying, does self exist or not exist, when he says not self, he doesn't, there's nothing that says that there is not a self. It's just that is what Nagarjuna later on, 600 years later, is looking at it and saying that it's neither exists nor non-exist. So in that way, you get partial credit for it. And the idea of this not self, so it's saying the Buddha is pointing the finger away from the idea of self, but not or taking it off the board, not erasing it. It's saying that this has to do with samsara. We cannot say it's real or not real, but it is a very, very subtle change. This is very important because this subtle change of saying not self does not make it go away. It is just what it is. And so the self, you could say, exists within samsara, but fundamentally it doesn't exist. It's only exist in apparent reality. But in absolute reality, self is not self. It is the self nature of mind. And this is really important as we begin to go through this. And I know some of this may sound repetitious, but it's going to take a while for you to kind of get this bang through. But if you can do this, when you read the sutras, you'll be so surprised how much you can now begin to understand. Go back and read the sutras. Just pick up a sutra and read it, and you'll be very surprised with this kind of a training, mind training, that it will begin to make sense to you. These very, very subtle points. And that's why I want to correct people as they talk, so that it gets you more closer to the right view as to how to see things and understand how mind works. Ultimately, it's beyond words, but to get to the beyond the words, we have to eliminate the the obscurations in the mind, the things that confuse us. So if academically we can take away the confusion, then when we sit, we will not have that fear to be able to let go. Okay, and that's important. So that's why I've been telling Sue for so long, to let go, and she's there and she's walking around like this going, I'm looking at it. Yeah. Puts her toe in, and then pulls it out because she's afraid. But one day she's just going to jump in all the way. In fact, she doesn't even realize she's already in there, but she doesn't know that she's already in it. Because there's just this tidbit of self-information that's still there. But her daily practices indicate that the self is not present. Okay. All right, I'll leave it there. I had like 6 pages again, and I only made it through 1 page. So we're going to keep working on this, and because I think it's beneficial right now, because I've given you a lot of Dharma, and just keep giving you Dharma and Dharma and Dharma, without kind of now starting to lace it together so that you can see the things, how they fit together. This is more beneficial than just giving you more stuff that you go, well, this sounds good, but I don't know what it means. So we're going to take the time, the patience to cultivate your practice at this point. And on a daily basis, then you cultivate your practice. Okay. All right, Louis. Your lips are moving, but I cannot hear you. There you go.
In the Diamond Sutra, several times the Buddha says there is no being, no life, no soul. But when we say Anatman, isn't that not no, a negation, but a without? I think, isn't that what the prefix means? And it means without self. It doesn't mean no self. It means without a self. And I think that for me, that's a distinct difference.
If you want to use it in that way, you can use it. It is something that, in terms of what it's doing, is it's pointing away from the idea of one having to get rid of self as being the thing that, let's say, the negative thing that's holding you back. It isn't. When we look at right view, we look at it from the other side, so we don't have to try to cast self out. And so when we put our attention, by turning the mind's eye inward towards mind itself, then it becomes self-apparent, that it's talking about self-nature. But this self, as it states in the Diamond Sutra, no personality, ego, or life and being, though it's saying these things, they're just understood to be a dream state. And that's exactly how the Diamond Sutra finishes. It's an illusion, a phantasm, a dream. And so when we see things in this way, then we don't lay importance on the self, or do we blame the self for anything. We just are clear about where the manifestations are appearing. But yeah, keep working on that. I mean, this is the way you approach the Dharma. Okay, so it's good. Harry?
Yeah, hi. When you were talking about us being the dreamed and not the dreamer, I assume you were saying because we take projections of our mind and we take them to be real. We don't realize we're reifying them. But when you're distinguishing the dreamer from the dreamed, that's a little dualistic, right? I mean, because there's really no separation. That's what we're trying to wake up from. That's.
Go ahead. the term that you used, reify, the practice is de-reify. And so the practice is one, rather than say, okay, I think, therefore I am. It de-reifies and says, you know, there's not a self there. We have to see the things as they are. When we see that that these appearances, what we have is the dreamer is the knowing aspect of mind, versus the appearances, the Narmonicaya, reflected in the Dharmakaya. And we're clear about that all of that is mind, that there's not a duality there. It just, that part, and it's a part that's, and your question's a good question, because what it does is that we have to see that everything from the mind's perception, rather than the perception that's limited to the samsaric world. The samsaric world cannot, let's say, if you were doing, you knew your multiplication tables, you know, your division, adding and subtracting, it could not tell you how to put a spaceship on the moon. It's limited in what it is able to do. But the mind is infinite, and it is just simply a snap of fingers and it's done. We can't know that. We can't understand that from the idea of samsara, but mind can. Mind can. And so this idea of doing it is not a dualistic. It's not dividing it in any way. It's not creating it as something that's lasting. It's clear about that all these temporary appearances are produced in mind, and being produced in mind, there is nothing apart from mind that we could call mind itself, you know, and apart from something else. And that's what's important is this. That's why so many sutras really bang away at this dualistic notions or conceptual thinking. If you read them, you'll see it all the time. No matter what sutra you read, they're talking about conceptual thinking and duality, where there's no duality. We're clear about it. We don't have to get rid of Gilbert or Harry or whatever. We just understand from where that comes from. It comes from mind.
Don't we? Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, don't. But we really have to get rid of concepts of self and no self, and get rid of getting rid. So that, I mean, so I just wonder, what do you think in the Nirvana Sutra, where it sort of has the four inversions, you know, of true self, true happiness, true permanence, and true purity. It's just playing with how our minds, you know, hear the teachings, right? Because it's trying to get us away from attaching to anything, I think.
But in its way, it's limited, because it's still talking about from the samsaric viewpoint. And so it's trying to tell you that the Four Noble Truths, the original Four Noble Truths, that everything suffering causes suffering, cessation, suffering in the path. And so that's why if you do that, then you get this liberation. But it doesn't extend over to the notion of the emptiness. You know, there is no suffering, no cause of suffering, such and such. So it can only take you so far. And the thing is that you have to see the things as you know, the sutras, and as they progressed in terms of this. I was reading about, what's his name, Taishu, Taixu. It was a master that predated Shifu and had taught Shifu's teacher, and he was talking about the three progressions, in terms of everything and the great progressions. And one of them was the idea of the emptiness, and then the one of going towards the Tathagata and Buddha nature, and then this ultimate one of just purity of mind. And it's not easy to understand it, but they're laying on different levels of we could say understanding, but they're actually realizations. We can talk about them in terms of understanding, but it doesn't give them the same value as mind realizing that. If mind realizes that, it's a whole game changer, because now you're seeing that there's the rules are not just limited to this world, and they change depending on what's there. So it's kind of interesting. So you kind of have to look at those and look at the context from the sutras and see what was there, what was coming after them, to see where this is all going. And it's very interesting. Even Taishu's student had a different variation. So all of these are variations of the theme as people interpret it, and these masters interpret it, and interpret it from their realizations, not interpret it in a scholastic way. When it's interpreted in a scholastic way, it makes a mess out of everything. But when it's interpreted from the realizations, then you begin to see even all of these other schools and whatever, they still connect together. They make a connection, but maybe some of them extend beyond. So it's interesting. You have to kind of see it in that way, and you'll push beyond the Nirvana Sutra. Okay, anything else? We should have some questions. I need to find out if this is helpful for people, or you're just kind of going like, what key is he playing in? Yeah. So one thumb up from Mark, another from Debbie. Okay, so some of you that had your things on, you're putting a Lingy, you can put her thumb up. Okay. She's always hiding. All right. What about you, Sue? Are you okay with this? Are you following?
Oh, of course.
I'll tell you like what Schiffer used to tell me. He would say, pay attention, Gilbert, because I'm talking to you. Okay.
I thought Jen has questions.
I think she just gave a thumbs up, didn't she?
No, she raised her hand.
Oh, Jane, go ahead. You have a question?
Well, I had a question, but it's just gonna be very basic one, so I'm just afraid of asking.
Just ask the question, no matter even if it's Chan 101 or pre-Chan 101.
Okay. Then will mind, no mind, is this considered as a dualistic? The reason I ask this question is, last week when you showed this, just doing that, it just clicked. In that wave, I think I might have been in that wave a few times, and sometimes even a couple hours. But I just, during that wave, I think the body just disappeared. It's just harmonized with that vibration, and it just dissolved with this universe. But someone know the waves, know the water, knowing everything. Who knows if I'm not there? I'm just feel it still has a knowing there, knowing things. So who knows? It's just, I think, it's been in that mind for a couple of months. I said, who knows that thing? Not me, I know for sure, because I wasn't there. And I have been in that wave. So it's just strange. But then right back to this body, I try to mimic that knowing. I can find it. I know it's there. It's there ever since I was, kid. I can go to that place, but can only stay there for a tiny moment. Just there. Oh, yeah, you are here. I got it. But then I'm back to this body again. So, but in that way, I can stay there for many hours. But in this body, then it can only have 1 second. So I don't know how to get there, and what is that? Who knows? Who is that thing knowing that? I don't know if the question makes sense to you. I might have explained it to you, but I just couldn't answer that question. It just keep bugging me. So I'm just, this is the 101. I'm sorry. I just cannot
It's okay.
help.
Does anybody know her condition or state of mind? So you be the master now.
No,
Anybody?
it's dualistic.
Anybody know?
Is that kind of like a unified mind kind of experience?
Yeah, it's a unified mind. It's good. It's good. The only thing is that you can't stay there. Okay. The unified mind is like all of a sudden the little I becomes the big I, meaning it becomes everything. It becomes the waves. But if you stay there, it's kind of like having a forever pass to Disneyland. Okay. And so every day you wake up and you're in Disneyland. But you're still in samsara, but you're like knocking at the door. So this is good. It's a good experience. It is one though that it confuses people because the people they've never experienced that. When somebody truly experiences unified mind, I mean, that's an incredible experience. And actually that was something that it was in my notes to talk about. So you fit in perfectly here, that it, a lot of times people will think that that's an enlightening experience, but it is, let's say, the next stop, or the stop after that is where you get off. You don't get off here. So when I say to jump for Sue doesn't jump into unified mind. She has to wait for the right train stop to get off, or the right wave. And so it's good. It is a good thing to do, but the problem with it is that it's such a good sensation. You keep replaying it in your mind, and it feels wonderful because there's no body, there's nothing. You're liberated, but you think you're liberated, but you're only liberated to the suffering of samsara, but you don't understand that there's still the what I call vestiges, the parts of samsara still there. So you have to move beyond that. And so the way you move beyond that is as you begin to experience something like that. And pay attention, everybody, because sooner or later you're going to get to where she's at. When you experience something like that, then you sit still. You just sit still. You don't move. You don't take pictures, and sightsee or whatever. You just are very, very calm. Stay in the present moment, and that experience. You cannot experience that experience unless you've had a sincere practice up to that moment. But this is not where you get off. This is where you push more, but how you push is not by straining, but by relaxing. So you just let it go. Even if it's a good experience and you feel so wonderful, you let it go. And so if you can do that, you'll go deeper into the realization. So this can only take you so far, but you're still in the samsara. You could say you're in the, like if it was an egg, you're in the air sac of the egg, where it's more empty, but you think you're out. So it's good, but you just have to once you start experiencing that, then just calm down, and relax, relax, relax. The relaxation will take you the rest of the way. Okay. As you begin to relax, when you're in that sensation, it's like you'll start taking the raft, and the raft will start going in the right direction. You don't have to paddle, you don't have to do anything. It will take you there. You know, you just have to have the faith it will do it and it will work. So it's a good experience, you know, but you can't dwell on it anymore. Okay. And then it will work very well for you. I mean, this is a significant experience. Okay. But you gotta get there. There's a lot of people here that have experienced unified mind. And so they would know what I'm talking about. But if you keep going, you know, this is good, because once you know how to get to unified mind, the only thing is you have to figure out how to get out of it. Okay. So the way you get out of it is just calming the mind. Don't disentangle yourself from all the things there. Because you have gotten to a point where what happens is that the ego is very clever. So it overlays the self onto everything else. So you can't see it. It's like covering everything with plastic wrap. You can't see the plastic wrap, but nevertheless it's there. So if you just let go, you'll pop right through that plastic wrap. Okay. So it's a good experience. So David's back.
Yes, unfortunately. I don't know what to say. Just listening and everything. Much of my practice, I think, is just too much, you know, studying and memorization and everything like that. And I would like to just put all that aside and just really begin to just find something just to really begin to contemplate and to learn what that's all about, and also to jump into the void and put all that stuff aside.
Yeah, you can do that. Doesn't mean that you can't study. The more you study, the more you'll develop a faith in the Dharma. So that's not necessarily bad, but you have to understand, don't have faith in the scholastics of it. Have faith in what the Dharma, where the Dharma is pointing to. And that will help you. The more you read, the more you see, well, this sutra says this one says the same thing in a different way, but it's still the same thing. So as you begin to see things, you'll be there. But you don't have to try to find that void. The void is in the present moment. You just simply have to relax and calm down, and just stay in that relaxed and calm down way. There's nothing special, not any amusement park ride that you will experience that you'll go, wow, this is it, this is the brass ring. Quite to the contrary, it's ordinary and mundane. It's not easy to explain that, but it is. It's just simply ordinary and mundane, but it clarifies all of the appearances. So the more and more you see that, and you looking for the dwelling place of Manjusri, you know, Manjusri's dwelling place is in those appearances. And because those appearances belong to the Buddha mind, we try to purge the mind from these appearances so that we can realize Buddha mind, not recognizing we're already in the ocean of the mind. So like when Jane is there, that's what's called ocean samadhi. When you're in an ocean like that, your samadhi is one that everything is all connected, everything is there. It's timeless. It really can be timeless. You don't feel that. The thing you have to be careful about, is there somebody that's experiencing that? The difference in a realization is that the realization cannot be called a samsaric experience. It transcends samsara and is just simply the Buddha mind perception. It cannot be a Buddha mind, even a realization or an awakening. It is just that we call it an awakening because it no longer lays claim to this body, this corporal body, but it is the realization that there's nothing separate. Everything is connected. Everything is perfectly connected, precisely connected, that we do. But we don't have to search for this void, this hole that we jump in. You jump in the present moment and just keep your mind still. Still does not mean that it is numbed out or dark. It is perfectly aware of everything around it. But it doesn't have to. If you're sitting in meditation, there's nothing that it has to engage, because the function of the body then is just simply sit in the present moment, nothing more than that. If things manifest in the present moment, let them manifest. Don't try to block them. Don't welcome them. You know, if you go, oh, I see the Buddha, let me go and walk up to the Buddha. You're not in a video game where there's somebody there that's going to be sagacious, and you talk to him, he'll tell you where the next portal or door is to get out of wherever you're at, like a video game. It's not that way. It is just simply that it's gateless. It's just in this moment, and so you stop fighting and entangling yourself. So when you stop, you rest the mind, and by its own nature, the mind will be there, because it's always there. It's always there. It's like as if you were listening to two stereos, and one of them was listening to some really hard rock and roll, and then you're listening to a channel of classical music. You're never aware that the classical music was there because the rock and roll was so blaring and loud. I'm not saying one is better than the other, but I'm just using it as a comparison, that you weren't aware that beautiful music was being played because all the noise that's happening. But once the noise goes away, that music has always been there. It's always been playing. And sometimes that's why I refer to it as the music from a stringless lute. You know, you cannot hear a stringless lute, but it can play. And the music can be heard, but not from the samsaric side. Okay, so don't try to reach too much, and don't purge yourself from what you were doing. Go, yuck, I'm so tired of studying. Don't do that. You study for the purposes of benefiting others. Okay, and then you won't feel like you're wasting your time, or that's not the way. The way is just following the function. This is all I've been talking about, is trying to demystify this right view and the understanding of jumping into the void or whatever. So it's not like something that you think it's out of some sci-fi movie, when you're spinning through this funnel or black hole or something. It doesn't work that way. It is in fact just clarifying everything that is coming through mind. It is no longer a mystery why you cannot settle your mind. You see exactly all of the things that are there, and if you can see it in yourself, you can see it in others. So this is what I'm trying to do with these classes, is that going through and dealing with them. But what I'm teaching you is actually very high level. It's just that I'm trying to present it in a way in which you have a chance of understanding it on a different level, not understanding it from the samsaric side. So it's like kind of slowing down, like the merry-go-round that you need to get on, You know, if you're a little kid, I don't know if you ever remember when the big kids were moving the merry-go-round very fast, it was hard to jump on. And if you jumped on, more likely you would be holding on with your hands and your feet would be dangling off. But when one stops all of that, stops fighting against the thoughts,
I see, yeah.
that everything slows down because mind speeds up. Mind begins to function at its natural speed, which is much faster than samsara could ever process. I mean, it clearly is a difference, and we don't know that because we cannot know that from the samsaric side. Okay. Anybody have one last question? Anybody going? Nobody. All right, then I will see you next week. And we'll continue on unless you guys say, hey, we've had enough of this, but there's a lot here to mine. And essentially what I'm doing is lacing all the Dharma that I've taught together. So you'll hear a lot of things like a refrain in a song, but it's important so that the more you hear it, the more you connect to it, the more it will have a meaning. Okay. And so, I know that it's working because I've talked to some of you and you clearly have the right view, and you know, and so a lot of you don't even know how far you've come already. Some of them are senior students and old timers like Harry, and then others are new people that come in and they really can get a lot of benefit from all of this. So I'm hoping that you stay here, stay patient, keep an open mind, and you'll do well. Okay. So, Amitofa. Take care. See you next week.
Thank you, Gilbert.
Oh, Wendy had a question, a late arrival.
Oh, well, do you have time still?
Well, if it's a short one, if
it's a short. Okay. What if in your mind your rock and roll is a lot louder than the classical music, but I like to hear classical music more. So do I need to do anything or just let it be?
Yeah, just pretty much just let it be. By its nature, if you stop paying attention to the rock and roll music, it will be quiet on its own naturally. Okay. And as it becomes quieter and quieter, then you'll hear the other tune. Okay. You know, the Master Shu Yun was talking about how, he plays a tune that no one can hear. And that's kind of what I'm kind of referring to. You cannot hear it. That's why I talk about a stringless lute, because you can't hear the tune. And so you but if you try hard, it doesn't mean to struggle, but if you try very hard, you will be able to hear the sound. Okay. The song of mind. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Right. Okay, everyone. See you next week. Good questions. Thank you very much for asking your questions. Take care.